Well, hello there, you're watching the press preview, a first look at what is on the front pages as they arrive. Time then to see what is making the headlines with Andrew Pearce, consultant editor of the Daily Mail, and Kevin Maguire, associate editor of the Daily Mirror, both with us from now until just before midnight. So, front pages. Let's start with the Telegraph. It leads with the breaking news tonight that Britain is to send Channel migrants to Rwanda to have their asylum claims processed. The Express also with that story, calling it a bold plan. While the Daily Mail says the idea is to smash the people smuggling gangs, preying on the migrants trying to get to Britain. The Metro leads with the resignation of the Justice Minister Lord Wolfson over Boris Johnson's refusal to resign after being fined for attending illegal Downing Street parties during lockdown. Well, The Guardian says Mr Johnson could face 3 more fines over events that he is alleged to have attended. Same story for The Mirror, which claims it as an exclusive with the headline, "Worst is yet to come." That's the Mail, isn't it? The Financial Times says the potential threat from neighbouring Russia has pushed Finland and Sweden closer to joining NATO. Quick reminder, by scanning the QR code you'll see on screen during the programme, you can check out the front pages of tomorrow's newspapers while you watch us. So let's go straight to our guests then. Andrew Pearce from the Mail and Kevin Maguire from the Mirror. Welcome to both of you. So let's go to that breaking news then. Daily Telegraph amongst the newspapers, leading Andrew with this idea of sending Channel migrants to Rwanda for what the government is calling processing. Your thoughts?
Well, this has been a long time coming. There's been a number of foreign locations floated. Albania was one option. Rwanda's been around for a while. It appears that Priti Patel, who's been getting a lot of flack from her own side, from a lot of people, over the apparent inability to be able to stem the flow of illegal migrant crossings in the Channel, has now struck a deal with Rwanda. We won't be the first country in Europe to do that. Denmark has already done it. Very few howls of protest from Denmark. There will be howls of protest here, of course, not least from Kevin Maguire. But this could be the way to smash the evil people smugglers, because people are continuing to cross the Channel. They are lured to Britain because they think they'll never get sent back. They're probably right, because the migrant system's in such chaos. But if they think they're then going to be taken straight to Rwanda, 4,500 miles away, they may think twice before risking their families on these crossings. And the view of the government is, and I share it, that a lot of these people who cross the Channel are young men with money in their pocket, which is why they can afford to pay the people smugglers who then come to Britain to look for jobs. They could apply the proper way, but instead they cross the Channel. And it's causing huge problems in many communities, particularly if you live in Dover and some of those Channel areas, because of the sheer numbers of people involved. And it's also, Anna, incredibly expensive. Hotel accommodation, hostel accommodation. This won't be cheap either, but if it deters people from coming, it might be a lot cheaper than the current system.
And some of them have fled also from places like Syria, and after seeing what the Russians are doing in Ukraine, perhaps people have a bit more sympathy for them. That's the difficulty, isn't it? So what are you saying then? This is just a deterrent, is it, Kevin? Is that the idea of this?
No, I think it's just blow a big racist whistle, isn't it? And turn people against migrants, the fear of the unknown. There we are. We got the government running a deeply flawed, hostile system on Ukrainian refugees who've struggled to get visas. And now one of their pet projects is to offshore people to show they're being tough. And the howls of anger won't just be from me. It'll be from people like David Davis, a Conservative MP, former cabinet minister, who thinks it's absolutely cruel and will be hugely expensive too. Are you really going to send people who've been sex trafficked, children, people victims of torture, people fleeing terror, or 5,000 miles to Rwanda? If the Home Secretary's framing it as beating the people traffickers, that's quite interesting. So will that only be people who have paid and have come with a people trafficker? So if you jump in the back of a lorry as post-COVID, Brexit bureaucracy to some extent, trade reopens, lorries are crossing the Channel if P&O ferries ever run again. Are they going to be exempt, or people on planes, or people who overstay their welcome? I think it's a really dreadful dreadful system. It sends out completely the wrong message to the rest of the world about Britain. It's not civilized, and there's been a lot of criticism of, I think, a more limited scheme in Denmark. And Andrew will probably say, well, look, Australia has a system sending people, I think it's Papua New Guinea. The camps they send them to in Papua New Guinea, one, they're hugely expensive, and two, there is violence, and sexual violence is absolutely rampant. And what's proved successful in Australia, which of course is a huge landmass quite a distance from any other landmass, is turning boats away. But they're big boats they turn away. They're not the small dinghies that if you tried to push back, remember Priti Patel's plan on that, you would capsize them in the channel. We've had plans for sonic booms, giant waves, and this is her latest plan. There'll be a lot of opposition within the Conservative Party on this. The decent Conservatives will see how deeply flawed and inhuman it is.
Well, the Daily Express calls it a bold plan. The Prime Minister will make a statement tomorrow suggesting that yet another 600 migrants made the trip yesterday. Your paper, Andrew, the Daily Mail, calls it a dramatic migrant blueprint, suggesting that it will cost £120 million to British taxpayers initially, and it's a 5-year agreement, also suggesting it is a world-first deal with the East African nation to host these migrants. What happens to them subsequently, who knows? But, you know, will this get support from people? Has the Ukrainian crisis, and in a sense the slowness of our response bringing refugees from there here, has that changed Britain's attitude to helping people from abroad who are facing their own personal crises?
Well, I actually think a lot of people are sick to death of what's happening on the channel. I think if you look at voter concerns, focus groups, they find it really frustrating. They're effectively illegal crossings. We know that people have died crossing too. And these people are leaving France, which is a very civilized country. It's a member of the European Union where they can be quite safe, quite civilized. So what are they running away from in France? Some of them will be genuine asylum seekers. Hang on, Anna, can I answer the question?
That some of them are coming to join family members and because of the language.
Anna, are you going to let me answer the question or not? Anna?
Yep, go for it.
Can I speak?
Yeah, no, please,
yeah, thanks
please
very
do.
much. Thanks very much. As I was saying, some of them will be genuine asylum seekers, I'm sure. But what's happening at the moment is thousands of these people are coming into Britain and they are being put in poor hotel accommodation or hostels, and then they disappear. Very few of them are ever sent back. There's very little evidence. Many of them are asylum seekers. Majority are seen as, a lot of them are seen as economic migrants with their very expensive phones, and many of them are under the age of 30. They're coming to Britain because they think it's a land of milk and honey, and they know when they get here, they'll almost certainly not be sent back. And it's time the government did something about it.
And the Refugee Council, who survey them, about half of them are legitimate claims, absolutely clear claims.
Really?
Others may be contested. Andrew said at the beginning they haven't applied properly. There is no proper way to apply. Instead of all this global Britain talk after Brexit, Fortress Britain has been erected to keep people out. We saw that with Ukrainian refugees when Priti Patel said, there's been a surge of people going off to Calais, Home Office officials, to help. I think there were two people there handing out bottles of water as people were told to go to Brussels or Paris where no appointments were available. I've looked at the case of 3 Ukrainian refugees trying to get into the UK who had a British link. They had a family to stay with because they had a British citizen going to take them of Ukrainian heritage. And they got a complete terrible runaround. They might have finally battered down the Home Office, but it's taken them some time. So if you try and lock people out and you don't give them any legitimate way in when they have legitimate claims to come here under the United Nations Convention on Refugees, now there was a European system when we were part of the European Union, which was the...
But it didn't work, did it?
It was the Dublin Accord, but of course we left the European Union, so that doesn't apply now. But a refugee who is fleeing, just say, Syria, Iraq, Iran, Eritrea, any of these really troubled areas, is entitled in international law to try and come to the UK. Yeah. And that's just how it is. And we would welcome them.
Kevin goes on about the previous system.
Refugees and migrants contribute hugely to our country.
Right. But Kevin goes on about the system we had when we were in the EU. It didn't work then because they were coming in the back of lorries in their hundreds. They were coming through the Channel Tunnel in the hundreds. They weren't using the proper system, Kevin. And then when the Channel Tunnel option was, Kevin, let me finish. When the Channel Tunnel option was closed to them, they started crossing the Channel. It didn't work. So maybe this system will work.
OK, well, this is a hugely controversial area. We will talk more, I know, a little bit later on. For now, stay there. Lots more still to discuss, including the ramifications of Partygate, the resignation today, and this story as well, the idea that Finland and Sweden might join NATO. Back in a moment. Watching the press preview with me now, Andrew Pearce, consultant editor of the Daily Mail, and Kevin Maguire, associate editor of the Daily Mirror. Welcome back to both of you. Let's go to the Metro and the Guardian, Kevin, shall we? The Metro leading on the resignation today of Lord Wolfson, Justice Minister, after the breaking of the lockdown rules, and the Guardian suggesting that Boris Johnson himself may face 3 more fines, which would have what impact, do you think?
Yeah, well, that'll be the question. Will it be cumulative and just build up the pressure, or will each successive fine, if there's 3 more, which my own paper, the Mirror, is also reporting considered likely, will people just shrug and say, well, that's another fine, and they have less impact? That's going to be the big political battle on where it goes, because the Prime Minister is certainly taking a political hit. And Lord Wolfson isn't particularly well known, it's got to be said, as a minister who's resigned, but he was a Justice Minister. And I think, as he makes clear, it's the level of criminality in Downing Street, and also the official response, which is just to shrug shoulders in one way, say, oh, in all humility, I didn't do very, very much. But if the rule of law counts for anything, lawmakers should not be lawbreakers.
Just trying to get the Mirror up, actually, but we will hopefully see it soon. But let's move to the FT, shall we? Which is one of the many implications of the Russian-Ukrainian war, which is the idea that Finland and Sweden might imminently, actually, very soon, join NATO, which would be an extraordinary development, wouldn't it?
It really would. And, Anna, this is exactly what Putin set out not to have. Putin wants to weaken the strength and influence of NATO, but because of his illegal invasion of Ukraine, it spooked both Finland and Sweden, who'd been thinking about joining for a very long time. They're quite close, their borders are quite close. It will change the geography and the security infrastructure of the whole region. Russia will huff and puff and bluster and not like it, but it will make NATO even stronger. And I, for one, hope they join. And because it's pretty clear Ukraine are not going to join, that will be all part of the eventual settlement, I'm sure, with Putin. But it seems Sweden and Finland will. And that's Scandinavia putting their money behind NATO and against Putin.
Yeah, very interesting indeed. Both of you, thank you very much indeed. Andrew Pearce, Kevin Maguire, thank you.